this, let it focus. No, just hold it still. Just hold it still. Is it coming into focus?
Nope.
Okay, then it's probably your bandwidth, your signal. I can't check it from here.
Can't be my signal.
What's that?
So it can't be the signal. We have so much router power
Well,
in this house.
go out and come back in. Go out and come back in.
Okay.
Yeah, just do that. Here she comes. How's that? Oh, there you go. Much
It's a little bit better.
Yeah.
That's okay.
So what's we got 49 people in the house already.
I know. I'm sure a lot of people are waiting to hear the actual story.
Well, after hearing your version of it, your reality of it, I don't even want to tell my part of it. It doesn't compare.
Yes. It's so crazy. It's been a week after, and I'm still processing it.
Is it a week?
And logically, yeah, it's been a week. Almost
That's right.
a full week.
So
today's Sunday. Yeah, so this was a week. Today's Monday.
There's my hero. That's my hero. He's probably
it's Monday, so it's been a full week. So there's so much.
Well, it's been 2 weeks. 2 weeks today.
Yes.
At about this time, I arrived to the mountain. To
2 weeks for you.
2 weeks today.
All right.
And
okay, so go ahead.
Well, so it was so weird because leading up to it, I did a lot of videos, and I was what was it? End of June. I went to the mountain. No, I'm sorry. 1st of June, I went to the mountain, moved out of the house, put our stuff in storage, as we both saw. I go to the mountain. They tell me, you're not going to be here. I stay at the base of the mountain in a hotel for 2 nights and get eaten by bugs and other beings. And I was told all this stuff. And then I end up staying in hotels trying to figure out what's going to happen. Then I'm told, go to Sedona, then I get over there. And even when I got back over there, we couldn't get to the mountain. So we stayed at the base of the mountain. And then today, 2 weeks ago, about 24 hours, literally, it's 4:08 here, Central Time, same as Arkansas. So it would have been about 3 o'clock. We check in this cabin for 2 nights. We get to the cabin. It's literally about this time, 4 o'clock. And I told everybody, because the cabin had like 3 beds upstairs and a couch downstairs.
Which cabin was it? Was it the one at Barren Mountain?
It was the first one on the left when you come in, right before the corral, the stable. Okay. So I just happened, because
close to the lodge.
Yeah, and I'd gotten it because it was going to be, well, number one, it was on the mountain, and I just checked with Dewey, do you have anything for like 2 nights? And he's like, yeah, I got this one thing. So I get there about 4:09, 2 weeks ago. I sit in the chair downstairs, and I tell everybody, I'm sleeping on this couch. And a couple of people were like, no, I want to sleep down here. No, I'm sleeping on this couch. I need to be alone, and that's all there is to it. And I sit down in the chair, and Judith Kuzel, because I was still working on Sandra, I haven't talked to her, I need to call her, Sandra Walter and Judith Kuzel coming in on the big screen. But I didn't know if we could technically do it, so I said, it's going to be a last-minute call, and I'll get back with you. Now, she writes me back, and she says something to me, and this is about the 5th time that she's come in my field in a very loud way since 2018 when something big's going to happen. And so she sends me a note. She says, brother, you're being prepared for something or something like that. You're about to go real deep. And
let's pause that.
Yeah.
Let's pause for 1 second. Okay, yeah. So I think we have enough people watching. I think so we'll start officially. So welcome to the SlammerSoulogyfest 2022 recap. So Todd and I are going to we're going to start the series. So it is an entire series as well. So we thought it would be very poetic if Todd and I could dovetail our 2 stories together. And as you know, with the spiritual community, there is so many layers to our story. And we Todd has like the mindset of a squirrel, so he gets off track a lot. So what I think would be easiest, because there's so many layers to the whole thing, like it's just wild and crazy, and I can't even I'm really good with words, but every time I think about it, this is my face. I can't put any articulation in the experience. It's just like just dumbfounded, right? You're just dumbfounded. So I think what we'll do is we'll start with the human side of it, of the events that unfolded, just the boring human side, and then we'll go back in and then interlace it with the higher messages.
Okay.
And then instead, otherwise what's going to happen is we're just going to go into this like vortex of chaos. So welcome back, the godfather of chaos. Nice to see you back in your seat.
I'm just riding dirty with my friend here. He's with me all the time, life and death.
So you checked in Mulberry Mountain.
The human side, I get you.
The human side, yeah.
Yeah.
So you were at the main lodge. That
I was at the main lodge. I started to cry. I won't go into the human side, but I started to cry, and I knew something was coming on, and I had already felt it. And so that was Monday. So I'm running around doing stuff all day Monday. I'm running around doing stuff all day Tuesday, up the mountain, down the mountain, here, there, everywhere. And I was waiting for Sandra and Alan, who everybody is going to get to know them if you don't know them already. And they end up pulling in after getting lost. It must have been 10 o'clock at night. And so it's, you know how dark it is out there. And so we pull them into the spot that was next to the RV that we didn't know was ours, that was there. That would have saved a lot of things. And they pulled in, and I said goodbye to them, and I headed to the airport. And I had this foreboding. And so I get to
what did Sandra say to you before you left?
Sandra?
Yes.
I don't remember. Did she tell you? What?
Yes, she said she held your hand and she just said, "Please be careful," and you laughed at her. And you said, "Why would I need to be careful?"
That was my higher. That was my higher self laughing through my body.
Yes.
So
that was where she just got this, and she's like, "I never do that. I never go up to people and just feel people like
really?
that." She goes,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she said she held you and just said, "Please be careful." And she just remembers that was the last time she saw you.
I hope they're watching now. They'll see the replays or not. I do vaguely remember that, and I just have to tell you that before Ty left Sedona, Steve, the ET, who appeared on SoulSpeaks 5D as a wizard, as an animated wizard while I was there, who can't be seen on...
Yeah.
Okay. Told Todd will not be going to the Soulogy Fest. He will be in jail.
Is that what he said?
He said that.
Wow.
Green eyes, same soul tribe. I'm telling you, this guy. And Ty said to him, "Don't tell me this if there's nothing I can do about it." He said, "There's nothing." He checks. He says, "There's nothing you can do about it." So yeah. So as a human, I was just running around, and I probably wasn't real present with her because I was going from one place to another. And so I went down. So it's like 18 miles to Fort Smith, and you take a left on the highway, and you go like 9 miles, and you're at the airport, and you're there. It's very small. So I'm at the 8-mile mark, about to exit.
Yeah.
I'm minding my business. Everything is fine. And out of nowhere comes a car, and the lights come on. It's a cop. So I pull over very quickly. I get out the registration and the insurance and everything that he needed. License plate, because I found it in the side pocket, wasn't put on the back of the car. And that ultimately was why he pulled me over. And so he's a state trooper. He came over. I showed him everything. I talked to him. He was very cool. He asked me for my license, and I said, I have an expired Hawaii license and an Arkansas ID. He said, "Fine, give it to me." And so then I sat in the car and looked in the rearview mirror, and I saw another car pull up, and I saw a cop walk up to him and start talking to him, and they talked for a long time, like a really long time. There was something inside of me that said, "You should smoke your last cigarette now." and I could have smoked 5 but I never did. And so then finally the other cop leaves, and I could tell by the conversation that they were like going, "What do we do? What do we do? What do we do?" And I literally, I didn't hear any words, but I could see the guy going, "Well, you got to, you got to do this." So the guy walks up to the passenger side and he says, "Mr. Medina, can you get out of the car?" I'm like, "Yes, I can." And so I walked to the back of the car, and he says, "Face the back of your car." And I said, "Okay." And that's all I heard. And I said, "Listen," I thought he was going to frisk me. And I said, "I've got a knife in my pocket." He said, no, you're under arrest. So put your hands behind your back, not on the car. So I put my hands behind my back. He handcuffs me and tells me there's a misdemeanor warrant for my arrest from 6 years ago from Houston, Texas, that has an extradition clause in it, meaning they can transfer me from Arkansas to Houston at a great expense for such an offense. And I said, "Are you kidding me? A misdemeanor?" He said, "I don't understand it. I don't get it." And at that time I was like, okay, well, I've been through this before, and it's not like it'll be like, "Hey, I'm having a festival. Can you let me off?" It wasn't going to be any. I'm not 16 years old trying to talk my way out of not my dad not finding out. And so I just accepted it. And I told him, I said, "Listen, I'm about to pick my friend up at the airport, Huong. And, by now it's like your plane has landed. Now I'm in the back of the squad car, and you're calling my phone." And he has it in my hand, and because he has such empathy, and he doesn't, and such confusion as to why they're even picking me up, right? He's trying to like turn the phone on so I can talk to you as I'm handcuffed in the back through the cage. But your signal or something wasn't working, or whatever that was, and it wasn't coming through. So finally we get to the station, and he's really got a lot of empathy. He's talking to me, talk to the desk sergeant, tell him everything, like, "You know what, this doesn't make any sense. I'm a state trooper, 22 years, and I don't understand this." So we know this was an act of God, or the goddess. We know this, right? And so at that point, you finally came through. And I'm literally handcuffed. He's holding the phone out, and I'm about to go into the station to get booked. And you came on, and I said, "Hung, I'm being arrested for a misdemeanor. They said they're going to extradite me to Houston." And all I hear you go, "Are you serious?" And I said, "Fuck yeah, I'm serious. Here's the officer right here." He's like, "Ma'am, yes, this is Trooper so-and-so."
And okay, so from my side of the story, so I'm from Vancouver, BC, Canada. It takes me 12 hours to get to Fort Smith, which is literally in the middle of nowhere, because you had to choose a place in the middle of nowhere. It takes me 12 hours door to door to get there, right? So I get this phone call, and I'm like, "Oh, he's running late. It's odd time. Doesn't matter." It's like, I can hang out here because the Fort Smith airport is so tiny. You literally can see from one side to the other side without even like crossing the building, right? So I walk out, I'm like, okay, I'll just wait for him. And that's when I text him, like, "What color is your car?" Because everyone's being picked up. I'm literally like the last one. And then I'm sitting around thinking, something weird's going to be happening very soon. I can feel it. And then the phone call comes through, and I'm like, you're like, "I'm at Crawford County Jail." And are you fucking kidding me, buddy? This is not funny. Like, at first I was so bad because I thought you were trying to be funny. At this point, I'm like, I just traveled 12 hours. This is not funny. If you're late, just be late. Don't sit there and make up some bogus story about you being in jail, right? And then all of a sudden the sheriff comes on, "Ma'am, I have your friend here," in that southern drawl. I'm like, "Oh shit, this is real." And then you're like, and I can hear the sheriff saying something, but I didn't hear what the sheriff was saying, but I can hear you saying, "Get yourself a hotel tonight. I may or may not be out of jail. I don't know." And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean you don't know?" And the sheriff is like, "He ain't coming out of jail." And then so I was like, wow. And then you're like, "Here's the security code." It was so cute. So through all of this, even though you're going to jail and you know what it's like there, the last words was like, "Here's your security code for the cottage. Make sure you get in there." I'm like, So you
I was
throw
on
out
point.
5 digits. I know, you throw out 5 digits and totally disregard yourself so I can get the security code. And I'm like in shock. The phone hangs up. I'm in the middle of nowhere. And this sweet man from the airport was like, "Are you okay? Is your friend going to pick you up?" I'm like, no, bro. I have no friend. I got to figure out my own ass around here. So then I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, let's just calm down. Like, you go through shock and awe, right? The whole thing, I'm just like, I can't believe this is happening right now. Of course I can believe this is happening. It's Todd Medina. Nothing should surprise me. Like, nothing surprises me. Yet here I am in Fort Smith, the armpit of USA, trying to figure out what to do next. So I got myself an Uber, was shocked someone actually was able to pick me up. We had 3 choices at 1 a.m. in Fort Smith. Who knew it was a bumpy place? So then I was like, I'll get myself to the closest hotel and I'll just sit there quietly and figure it out. So I got myself to during this time, I'm texting my husband, and my husband is not even shocked. So this explains to you.
He's my brother, man.
He's not in shock, and he's not in fear at all, because he knows I'm well traveled. I travel by myself a lot for business, so I've done that since I was 26. So he knows he's not. I'm going to figure it out, right? So I get myself to the hotel, and I just sit there, and I'm just going through all of the emotions of like, what is happening? Like, so I had 3 options. And I didn't want to act on it until I get to the morning, because I was like, okay, I'm calling in the dragons, because this is obviously one of those oh shit moments, right? And my 3 options were: option A, I'm going to bust you out of jail with my charisma and charm. Just so you know, that didn't work. Option B was to keep the show going. We just go ahead as planned without you. And option C is quietly go back on my plane and disappear from Fort Smith and just watch all burn from the air. So I like, all 3 options are solid. I'll just systematically go through all 3 options and see what happens, right? So what happened to you? Like, what went through your head at that moment?
What went through my head was when I walked, well, after he told you he's not going anywhere, and I walked in and walked into a place I hadn't been in 10 years, but exactly 10 years, you know, and the same type of, you know, like, it was unjust, you know, it's not right, whatever. Where 10 years ago, I had to work through all that stuff. I walked in just accepting everything. So by the time they took 2 hours to book me, and all these other inmates are coming in, people were drunk and this and that, people were bloody. And it was like, by the time they turned me over to put me into the cell, the guy says, "Hey, here's a very nice man. His name's Todd Medina." I don't know where he got that from, because you know, the only questions I answered were, you know, do you have diabetes, and all the stuff they ask you before they book you. But when I went into the cell, they handed me a mat that was like this thick, and a blanket that had like 46 holes in it, maybe 144, I don't know, but I wasn't counting at that point, and a roll of toilet paper. And so I walked in, and the guy that was kind of there, kind of an inmate that was kind of like, you know, seeing after things, he told me where to go, because it was the only spot left, which was right in front of the stairs coming down from the upstairs, where everybody's grid would fall through the stairs, and a bunch of dirt and debris would come and land. But I was just on the other side of it. It was the last place they had, and they told me, several people told me, don't go under the stairs because you'll get this shit all over you. So I laid down, and my pillow was the toilet roll, and I just started experiencing the whole thing for the next 6 days, which was basically, have you been here before? There's a reason for this. You knew this was coming. And, you know, so you're getting that intel going, oh my God, are you fucking serious? And at the same time, you've got the human experience. It's 3:00 in the morning, and there's 38. I was the 38th prisoner in a cell where there should be 20. So there was at least 18 other people sleeping on the floor. And so I just, what I noticed just firsthand, you know, and I'll throw it back at you, but I noticed that all the players that came up, all the things that came up in regard to the event which was really the culmination of a lot of things, which a lot of us could relate to. Mine's more extreme, where we're the what they call the black sheep, or we're the outcast. There was a lot of antagonistic energy that came at me. There was a lot of attacks, destructive things. I wasn't clean on it, but I paid my price. I did my time, so to speak, and that was 10 years ago. Now I'm in the same situation. It's a ripple from that time that's totally erroneous, and I know that, but it doesn't matter because circumstances and consequences are the same thing. So here I am, and I notice the players are coming up, and I'm not charged, and I'm not trying to remove a charge. I'm just watching it all. And behind that was there's something really big going down. You're a part of it. All of your collaborators are a part of it. This is going to be fucking awesome. But at the same time, you're going to be here for a while, so, deal with it. So that's kind of how I try to go to sleep at that time. Yeah.
And then, so for yourself, there's that part of it, and then there's the human part of it, where you're kind of the headliner for SoulogyFest 2022, right? Because you created this model where you didn't actually have any headliners, but in reality, a lot of people wanted to come to meet you and also to share their own story. So, did that ever enter your processing while on the first night?
It's interesting. Yes, it did right away. But it's interesting because when this happened to me 10 and 11 years ago, everything, I've written about this, and what I wrote about was, lost the home and the car and the money and the family and the children and everything, right? But what I didn't write enough about, or as much about, was losing my dignity, my reputation, my character. These are things in terms of perception from beyond yourself, external perception, but also your self-perception. And so this time I didn't worry about it. Like, I knew that there was a reason this was happening. I knew somehow that it would go off as it was intended to, and I was actually receiving information before that. I just didn't understand it. I didn't get it, but as it was happening, it was making more sense, and I just knew that it was going to be, because I had received so much intel over the previous few weeks that makes no sense. Just go do it. A bunch of ladies all over the world, men, guys I didn't know, musicians coming in going, I've got to be there, I don't know why. All these people carpooling. So I knew it was a huge thing. Plus, I'd been visited by the Universal family and Mulberry Mountain essences and etc. So I knew something huge was happening, but I also knew my main thing was to maintain my personal field of presence under whatever conditions I was put into. And so that part of it, all that stuff out there in the etherics and what I knew and what I intuited, that was great. But the human being had to be totally present in jail, in silence, incarcerated, looking at 2 hot dogs, 2 pieces of bologna, 6 pieces of bread, 1 little cup of oatmeal, and a couple of other things a day, 3 times a day, and being in this environment with 40 guys and being present to the best of my ability and in control of my emotions and so on and so on. Like, I didn't have a lot of time to think about what was going on, but when I did think about it, I knew it was going to be fine. I did. And really, the main reason is, believe it or not, is because you were there, and Ty and Serena. I knew that little triad, because to me the most powerful triads at this point seem to be 2 females and a male. Like you, me, Morgan, or like Serena, you, Ty. And I just knew that because of the peripheral relationships that were substantial and real from that triad, I knew it would be fine. Plus, I knew all of the people that were coming that didn't understand why they were coming. They were just coming. So I knew it was going to be okay. I didn't know it was going to be as grand as it was, though.
So the next morning I woke up. So I had the whole night to process, and I was looking for guidance because I usually do my magic work when I'm in the astrals, and I'm looking for guidance, and it came up nothing. I didn't sleep very well, but I didn't sleep terribly, but I came up with nothing. And then I didn't know it at the time, so when I asked the dragons to come, and I know it now, it came to me yesterday, but when I asked the dragons to come in to help, they did come in to help, but they abandoned me and they shifted to you. So so it's just like that's how they were. Yeah, so it just shifted, and I didn't know that.
What do you mean they shifted to me? What do you mean? Like I needed all the help I could get?
Yes, pretty much.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about. I'm trying not to downplay the human experience because I haven't really talked about it, even with Morgan.
Yes.
You know, like because it's like the tenderest sore. You know what I mean? Like it's.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where it's just like you ask for help and you don't realize part of that help means that your usual strength, like your usual spiritual strength gets shifted. So they abandoned me and then left for you. So that's what, and I want to preface this conversation by saying my profession, actually, I'm well practiced when it comes to planning and then allowing for chaos to reveal itself, and those moments are always my favorite moments. So when it comes to like Soulogy Fest, a lot of people think that I did a lot. I really, when it came to the technical aspects of planning Soulogy Fest, it actually, without sounding arrogant, it's just a skill set I have honed over like since I was 16. So for me, that part was effortless. What was not effortless is being forsaken because my dragon team shifted to Todd, right? And then I had to work with all the energies without that amplification. That was the challenging part for me. And then I knew coming in that if I was going to commit to the plan B part of it, which was go ahead with Soulogy Fest without you, that the other part that was really difficult for me was, number one, I honestly had no friends there except for Todd Medina, who was in jail. So it was just like I knew nobody. All I remember from the short 30-second phone call from jail was that you need to find Nan Hodges and she can get you to the mountain. And so I was like, I don't know who Nan Hodges is, right? But I do. So for one weird thing is I don't accept a lot of friend requests on Facebook either. The friends I have on Facebook are friends that I've met in the flesh, not online friends. But for some reason, I accepted Ty's, right? So the day before, Ty Hutnell requested a friend request, and I accepted him. And then so I sat there, I'm like, wait, Ty must know some of these other friends because he has friends. I don't have friends, but Ty has friends. So I called Ty. First thing in the morning, I was like, I'll call Ty. So I'm like, hello, Ty. Never met you in my life. I know you've heard of me and we've heard of each other. P.S. Our friend is in jail. And then they're on the road. And then you can hear Serena, like, you can just hear the whole air shifted. And Ty goes, what did you say to me? Todd is in jail. I think he's going to be there for a while. So I need to figure out what the next steps are. And you should have seen Ty was just like breathing, like laboring to breathe to just try to like, because he's driving. And I'm like, are you sure he didn't want to pull off to the side of the road? Because I can see in the camera, the car's packed full of equipment. And him and Steve like, is he okay? And I'm like, I have no idea. What I need is I need a ride. And I was wondering if you can tell me who Nan Hodges is and get me in contact with her. Because Todd has said if I get a hold of her, she can figure out what the next steps looks like. So that's when, as soon as I contacted Ty and Serena, that's when we clicked, right? And we started moving as one. So then Ty and Serena are so great. Honestly, if it wasn't for them, I would have moved to plan C, which is just quietly go back on the airport and just watch everything burn down. But they clicked in right away. They sent support, got a hold of Nan, and then Nan came to pick me up in that Tim Smith's van, which I was shocked you thought that thing can operate on its own. I feared for my life when she was driving in that van. She came to pick me up, and she's like, okay, we're going to go straight to Mulberry Mountain. And I'm like, no, we can't. We have to go to jail. And she's like, no, I don't want to go to jail. I'm like, no, we're going to go to jail. I'm going to break out. I'm going to either jail break out Todd or figure it out. So one of the neat things, and I'm a Canadian, so I know nothing about your justice system. So I actually jumped online, punched in Crawford Jail, like county jail, and punched, you can look up your inmates. And that's when I saw your mugshot, right? And and that mugshot came up. I was like, I can't believe this. It's kind of like a visceral, like, documentation that this is for real. When you see your mugshot with the prison inmate number, you know, assigned to it and everything, I'm like, he really is in there. So I went to Crawford County Jail, and I was talking to one of the deputies, I guess, and I was like, oh, hello, my friend is in there. Do you think I can have him for 3 days and you can have him back after the Soulogy Fest? I was like, I heard you guys take money. I have cash. Like,
you're lucky you didn't get arrested.
I know, but I guess they were just looking at me so confused.
Yeah.
Because these are big guys, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, who are you?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I'm nobody. I'm actually not from this country, but my friend's in there. Just wondering if what the process is. So they walked me through our process, and I'm talking to him, and I'm trying to get more information than obviously that they should give up, right? But I knew through that conversation that you were going to be in there, and I had to move to plan B. I was like, oh shit, this is real. It's going down. That motherfucker is not coming out for Soulogy Fest. And then Nan was like, no, we have, she's like, well, what can we get the car out? So I was like, oh yes, I definitely got information on that. So your car was impounded, and we got your car out. And that's when we realized you probably were pulled over because your old plates were on there and not the new plates. So it was probably a really mundane routine check. And I was like, oh, it's an act of God. You know what I mean? Like, so slow in Fort Smith that they ran your plates. That's how slow it was. Like, in the big city, nobody has time for that shit. We have real criminals to, like, bust down. So then, so we went to go get your car, got it out. I drove your car back. Nan drove it back to Mulberry Mountain. And that's when we met with Ty and Serena. So they came up after being on the road. And that's when the big stuff for us started happening, is when I hit that mountain. As soon as I hit that mountain, it was not a warm, fuzzy feeling, I have to tell you. It's beautiful. Like, all the attendees will tell you that. Gorgeous, lush, so beautiful. But the energy was so off. It wasn't like beautiful energy that was cuddly and wanted to give you a hug. It was like, whoa, what did I walk into? That's the first thing when I got up there. And I can say, I was like, there is something way bigger than you being in jail, than me being there. Everyone here, it was so intense, that energy. And I want to say it was almost assaulting. I haven't been in nature. I've been to 2 other places that kind of evoked that energy form, but it was very assaulting. And it took me a long time to try to figure out, between all the human drama and that part, what was actually coming through. So when I met with Ty and Serena, we actually had a little bit of a meeting in their own cabin. And in between, we're rescuing stranded guests as well. So there's like all these texts came in that like, Todd was supposed to pick me up, and now I'm here and trying to coordinate the network. So we lit up the network that we knew that was built there, and we ran everybody that we could to pick up guests. So for example, got a hold of Eric and Jen, and they picked up like Hania from, they were about 20, 30 minutes away from them. And Astrid was rescued from Nan, and Robert Evans knew something was wrong. So he just, took a lift and it ended up there. And our small group, so it was Amethyst, and they were also trying to find accommodations. That was the other tricky thing. There was a lot of accommodations that you said, oh, just show up and I'll figure it out. So yeah, guess who's the chump that had to figure it out? I had literally my day just like managing poor stranded guests. I have no idea where they were, what accommodations. But the beautiful thing is, as soon as I was like, okay, I need a room for this, someone would step up, right? Delia and her friend came, and then she's like, Todd was supposed to sleep us somewhere, but then she found not one, but 2 options. So there were lots of moments like that where it was just like the community just banded together and just went through it. And we struggled of trying to figure out, should we wait to make the announcement that you were not going to attend, or should we just hold out to the very end, right? So one of the things is on, I think this was Wednesday night, Morgan started talking to the kids. So in the background of all of this, I tried to insulate Morgan, but she picked it up anyways. And then Morgan immediately, as soon as she found out, she started talking to the kids, your kids, and trying to get that back in, because she knew that 6-year arrest was the origin was from them. So she was trying to work through on that back end side while we're trying to run the front end side. And we prematurely got information that you were going to be released for Thursday morning. So the next morning, I went out with Ashley Lee. She was my mate for Soulogy Fest. Thank God.
She was?
So
I didn't know that.
She was. Yeah, she was.
That's a good duo.
Yeah, she was one of the ones that didn't have a room for the first night. So we just became roommates for the first night. But we went out and sat in front of Crawford Jail for another hour, hoping for a miracle that you would just walk out like Jesus. that didn't happen. So we went to eat sushi instead. And then we're like, this is not going to happen. We really need to get back to the base camp and then go on to plan B, right? So we went back to base camp, and I was just like, okay, this is what's going to happen. We're going to announce it. We're going to let everyone, we're going to create space for the container of everyone's disappointment to just go into it for Thursday night. And everyone will go do that, and then they'll clear, and then they'll move on. And then when we start officially on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, it'll be a much better pace, right? So, and poor Ty, he thought he was going to throw up. Like, I remember on stage, they were setting up, everything was going well. I'm like, all right, it's time, it's go time. And I look back, and Ty's like, okay.
Was he really? He's always so calm and cool too.
He's so calm and cool,
Yeah.
right? So he's taking deep breaths, and you can see he's like walking off the energy. He's like, and I'm like, are we good? And he goes, okay, just do it. So we made the announcement. And one of the things is I strategically made the announcement in the form of humor, because I didn't want a big pity party for you. And even though my true emotional expression at the time, I was still quite angry, but like making it funny, but still angry funny. So it's just one of those things. The entire time my muscles in my stomach were like so sore from laughing the entire weekend at the ridiculousness of everything that's happening, right? And so when we made the announcement, you can see the online audience and the in-person audience, was just like this huge release of shock and awe. And we just sat there, and then we kind of regrouped. And then an hour into it, Ty and Serena weaved and pivoted everyone, and everyone was like, okay, there is a higher meaning to it. We don't understand, but we're going to move forward. So that just set the stage beautifully for the rest of the weekend. But I mean, it was still a bunch of little things that just added up. Like, I didn't know when the tents were coming. I didn't know if we had toilets. And poor Dewey, we didn't tell him you were in jail until like the festival was over.
He was the guy that I was coordinating with that represented the Mulberry Mountain.
Yeah, so Dewey Panton was our event coordinator. He was the representative from Mulberry Mountain. No one told him that Todd was in jail. He just thought I was super bossy because I was talking to him the entire time.
Oh, man. Did we ever get the Soulogy Fest banner?
No. Why would we have a banner? Where is it?
It's sitting in the general store right there on the couch. The whole time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, it's probably like the trailer that was sitting there for 2 days and no one knew about it.
I'll go pick it
up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I talked to Cynthia Wickler, Colleen Holth, Nan, Amethyst, Ty, Serena, 3 or 4 other people, you, Morgan, and I didn't really know what was happening on the other side. So through y'all, I picked up on all of it. But yeah, I think it was a really big period of time too. I mean, Morgan called the 26th through the 3rd, this certain period where there's whatever it was, this was the period. Kind of started on that Monday, the 22nd, which is where you started. And so like once I got in there, there was multiple streams coming in. And for most of the first 3 days, like the first 72 hours, because I didn't eat for 3 days. I just drank the water out of the faucet. I couldn't eat anything. My stomach was like going nuts. I mean, I smoke a few cigarettes a day. I wasn't having any nicotine. I was being cleansed out. I mean, I was having to really be on my toes to all the sensitivities as all these multi-streams were coming in. Everything that had happened 10 years ago, the rhythms were the same. The experience felt the same, but it was different. I was different. It wasn't about me. There was something collectively going on. And a lot of this I'd picked up before I got to the mountain. And as this was all occurring, and as somebody pointed out, for some reason, we did a show a month and a half ago that said it was entitled Co-Creating from the Chaos. And you and I did that last show as we were like going into it. Okay, so, but what I started to understand, it was very collective. And so there was 37 other men in this cell. There was Aryans, there was blacks, there was Latinos, there was country boys, in different ages. And I'd never seen this before. When I woke up, or reawoke 11 years ago, I went to jail 3 times. When I was a kid, I went 7 times. I'm talking like 15 to 21. Just never gone to prison or anything like that. But there's a certain culture in those types of places. It's cliquish. There's little power games. There's power areas. Hey, this is where this guy sits every day. You don't go there. And I mean, there's all these different kind of things that you don't see so openly and blatantly in the regular world, or the free world, like they say. So what I noticed was, after about 3 days, I was stuck in this corner with 5 or 6 guys, and it was just a really tight corner. Everybody took care of each other, and then they took that out into the rest of the unit, the rest of the pod. And what I noticed was all these different cultures and frequencies, apparently, that were blending together in, I could only call it like a new masculine frequency, to the point where they were even making remarks, and the guards were even friendly. It was very weird to see a guard walk through
I felt that.
Yeah.
So one of so on the first day, so on Wednesday morning when Nan and I were there, one of the things I wanted to do was have an energetic assessment of how much suffering you're going to do in there, right? So when I walked in, it actually was, I'm not being funny, I'm being quite serious. The energy of Crawford County Jail was friendlier than Mulberry Mountain, in contrast. Yeah. Like I felt you're safe. You might be going through your own issues, and yes, it may not be the best conditions for you, but I felt you were safe. Like it was one of those things where I walked in and I didn't have any intuition that you were going to be harmed in there, right? If there was any harm, it would be just you going through your own stuff, but physically no one would harm you and no one would cause harm to you. So I felt really safe, and I had to, so that was a huge relief. That helped me go to the next phase knowing that you were safe. Because if I felt that you were not safe, it would be a very different situation where you go into, you like, oh, fuck Soulogy Fest or something even darker happening in there. Yeah. But it wasn't. I didn't feel that at all. So I did feel that from the I was like, it felt like a community center, right? When I was walking in, like people unexpectedly were going to work together and no one was there to be like malicious or cause harm to each other. Right.
Yeah, and it was interesting because when you're in that environment, and the minute you go into that environment, and that's how this story will end for me, is being transported to Houston and going into something that was, I think, much more descriptive of, in our futile attempts to describe what is happening behind the stories, right? But it was, because when you go into those environments, there's very much a superiority inferiority kind of thing. If you're a prisoner, it doesn't matter how you got there. It doesn't matter about right or wrong. It doesn't matter about anything. You are a peon, And what I saw different here was there was interaction. To see a guard walk through a pod with 38 men with no weapon, and they're going back and forth like freaking frack, like you and I would have banter, the prisoner to the guard, you know, talking shit, and I'm like, this is fucking weird, right? And then to see the symmetry of the different ethnicities and cultures and ideologies and the non-cliquish part of it was really strange. And then I started to understand something was happening, and I was bearing witness to it. And so this, you know, as after the third day, I started to come out, and people started to come to me, and then this whole thing kind of happened. I think Ty put some money. I was able to start communicating with Morgan and message and talk to people here and there. And they were assuring me everything was fine, and I could feel the love when I would talk to Izzy or you. Or, in fact, the first time I started to break down, I was cool. It was like 3 days into it. I didn't know there was money in my account. I didn't know I could make a phone call. And then I found out I could, so I called. The only number I had was Amethyst, you know?
Yeah.
Like I didn't have any numbers memorized or anything, and I couldn't call you because you were international. So I called him, and he's trying to. I'm like, dude, can you get it? And he's like, well, you know, like he was coming apart, and I said, where's Huong? He goes, Hung's right here. Let me talk to Huong. But as soon as I heard your voice, I started to get emotional, and I think I told you I got to go. You know, like I was 3 minutes into a free 5-minute phone call. And I said, I got to go. Because I have all these guys around me, and my previous experiences, you don't show any emotion. You don't show any weakness in this kind of situation. But, so it went from there, and it just got better and better. There was a lot of camaraderie. I got people's names and numbers. Talked a lot about Soulogy. And the way it ended for me, you know, I would touch base on the mountain. I would hear different people, talk to different people just briefly, and try to help coordinate things and all that stuff. And it was pretty miraculous. And so then at the very end, now I'm in the 6th night, and they serve breakfast at 5 a.m. And the typical thing that happens is everybody gets up, eats breakfast, goes back to bed, and they get up about 9, right? So I was eating very little. I would eat like 2 bites a day, you know, maybe twice a day. And so what happened was I woke up that morning at 5. I was already up, actually. I couldn't sleep. And they turn off the message thing at 11 o'clock, and you can't use it till 6 a.m. So they brought the breakfast. I was the first one. I said, I got to eat something. For some reason, I got to eat something. So I ate the oatmeal, which is like 4 bites, gave my tray away, and then everybody went to bed. And so I jumped on the touch screen at 6 o'clock perfectly to contact Morgan, and she had sent me 2 little messages, and it just made me feel good. You know, I was like, wow, I'm happy. I'm writing this. I'm happy. These make me happy. Aww. And then the guy opens the door, and he says, Todd Medina, and I look, and I said, am I going? He said, yeah, get your stuff. So I said, I'm leaving. I'll call you in a minute.
Yeah.
So then I walk out the door. I get my stuff. I drop it on the outside of the door, and say goodbye to everybody. And I walk out with, you know, he closes the door. We're walking down the corridor, and he says, man, they came fast for you. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, you're going to Houston, right? I said, oh, apparently. So I walk out. And everything to that point, even the guy I was talking to, the guard, they were very friendly. They were very respectful. They were very inquisitive and curious about me and what Soulogy is and what the festival was and all my story. And we just, you know, it was just cool. You know, like you said, the feeling that you got. As soon as I came out of the corridor and made eye contact with these 2 bounty hunters, okay? These are guys that drive around the country in like an Uber-esque type of paradigm, and they say, oh, here's a guy we can pick up and make $2,000. Here's a guy I can pick, right? So it was this, it was this husky offensive lineman looking black guy, and this smallish, bald, sunglasses Cubano from Miami, right? And like living the part, like, man, I'm a bounty hunter. Like I want to be like Dog the bounty hunter. Yeah. So I walk in, and they tell me, like, take your clothes off and, bend over, cough, and do things that, aren't so pleasant. But at this point, I don't even, I've already accepted it. I didn't know. I actually thought I was going to be released, make it to the last day of the festival, and or whatever it was, and so they end up shackling my ankles, put this thing around my torso, and shackle my arms here, right? So I'm like this, right, and then they stick me in the back of this Tahoe, and I'm going to be this way for the next 8 hours. And I was fine. I mean, it was weird. I knew something was going on, and I was okay with it. I had accepted that I would be in the back of this car, as crazy as it sounds, for 8 hours, right? And as soon as we head out, because I know the area, because I've worked these areas for years in business and travel and family, I notice he goes kind of the wrong way. So like within 10 minutes, this is Arkansas, you get off the beaten path. It's just like Mulberry Mountain. All of a sudden, we're in the Ouachita Mountains, and it's picturesque, and you're looking down, and it's all green, and the Cuban guy's driving, and he says, "Where the fuck are we, man?" And I said to him, "You went the wrong way, dude." He's like, "No, I didn't. This is the GPS, and it's not wrong." And I said, "Well, then you went the right way." Which was the last thing I ever said besides, "No, thank you, no, thank you, no, thank you. Do you want water? Do you want to pee? Do you want something to eat? Do you want to stop?" No, I just want to get there. And as we start driving through this picturesque, this high elevation, these mountains, I look out the window, and all these things started happening. I could feel all of these people or souls around me, which is the way it felt in jail, both incarnated and disincarnated. And I see... and I don't remember the exact order because it kind of happened at the same time. Like something happened after that exchange with him. Franco pops in, and he's just laughing, and he's just giggling, and I'm like kind of giggling too. And I said, "What's up?" And he's like, "We knew you could do this. We knew you would get it." And I'm like, "Do I have any fucking choice here?" Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm kind of like trying to laugh, like you said, the angry laughter, the angry humor. So I look out I look out the window, and I see this figure come in, and it's a red-tailed hawk, and literally comes like 10 feet from the window and parallels with me for a second, then takes off. That's my animal. And it happened 2 more times during the trip. But as after that happened, all of a sudden, all the greenery on the mountains as we're going by it, you can just see like the different elevations and contours started shape-shifting and start telling me this story going back approximately 10 or 12,000 years. All these lives, not just my own, all these initiatives, all the stories. It wasn't like a sad or Trail of Tears type of thing. It was more of a wow, look at this story, and it was all the players and people you'd see in different incarnations, different tribes, different lifetimes, and how it was all correlated and connected, and that went on pretty much for the whole trip. Besides when I would be like in between Delta and awake state, and I would start to like close my eyes, they would roll down my window real fast to fuck with me, like and I'd be like, and they wouldn't say anything. And that was the way it was till the end. I didn't say anything. I didn't talk to him. We got to the end, and they're just like, "Dude, what's your thing? Like, don't you get upset or emotional?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course." "Well, why aren't you like, And I said, "Because I'm a fucking soul, man. Like, what are you gonna do to me?" And that was the last thing. Yeah. And then they dropped me off to the Houston thing. So by then, what? That's you're leaving that
Houston
day.
Yeah, so Houston, so for us, we had a couple of what I go premature celebrations. So Wednesday night, we were told that basically the person that would created the charges against you was going to formally drop them, and that you would be released the next day. Mm-hmm. That I celebrated out of relief. It was a phone call from Kate. She had Izzy with her in the car, your daughter, obviously. And so they were like, Izzy said, no, it's going to happen. Dad's going to get out. I feel he's going to be here, right? And so everyone celebrated. And then, but the funny thing is, I went home, and that night, I still didn't sleep So I knew, like, waking up, I was like, oh, that asshole's not coming out. I still have a lot of work to do, because everybody was like, oh, Todd will be here. And because you were the glue for Soulogy Fest. Of course, Ty and Serena practiced one section of the stage production of it, right? And of course, I was there for I was there for the accounting part, like the most boring part of this whole festival. I was like the bean counter, okay, people? I knew how much things cost, and that was it. So it was one of the things where it's just like, I have no idea what anything else was like. And so it was, so going in, I was like, oh, okay, I need to figure out this, and this. And I wasn't worried that I wasn't going to figure out, but it was just one of those things, again, holding space, because I know one of the things that overwhelmed me, and I was honestly quite surprised, is how many people loved you. I know that sounds really funny. Especially when you say it out loud, but there was so much love for you, and people would come up, and I don't know how, but I became the face for you. So people would come up and confess their undying love of you to me, and I'm like, the most of all the people. I was so overwhelmed by that. I'm like, and they're like, oh, he's suffering in jail, and I'm thinking, and this is the monologue happening in my head. I'm smiling and maniacally laughing, and I'm like, if you think he's suffering, wait till that asshole comes out. He's not done something yet, right? Kind of thing. I was like, so
shit.
But that's where the challenges for me came in, because all of these people came because of this intense community that you created is founded on just respect for each other's geniuses that have never been seen or acknowledged before. There was so much respect for you, right? And that was part of it, where it was really difficult for me to try to stay out of it, because it's pretty heavy stuff. Like, all of people's stuff when they project on you, I'm not used to that, right? So trying to move through that, and just moving through, like, so you have the what I call the real essence of the Soulogy Fest, the heart of it, and you're trying to make sure that people stay on track. And then you got the really boring stuff, like making sure I have toilet paper, right? You know what I mean? So there were so many people that kind of interlaced and helped me out with it. Like, for example, Jana and her husband Constantine did run to Walmart just to get me toilet paper, and I was so happy. It was just little things like that. Or when we rescue guests and they're not stranded, so happy with that. So it's those moments. And then we brought on Friday, when we did the dry run on Thursday, and we announced it, and then let everyone collapse into, like, whatever expectation they had. Honestly, I collapsed it. And it was one of those things where it's just like, it wasn't great, but I had to do that, kind of for everyone. It's just like, if you came here with expectations, I'm so sorry, it's not going to happen for you. But if you are able to push through it, something better, I assure you, is going to happen for you. That's kind of how it works. And then on Friday, when we formally kicked it off, Izzy showed up, and I said, this is such a poetic way of healing the Medina family, because I knew your family background and all of it, and having your daughter, of all the kids, she really is so much like you. It's kind of scary. Way better looking, but she's so much like you. So we brought Izzy on stage, and she just gave this beautiful opening speech for the opening ceremonies, and she got really emotional. Everyone can kind of feel it. And then she just kind of blasted out this, I would say, the Medina essence of heart energy to everyone. And that helped settle everybody for whatever expectations they had. You know what I mean?
I didn't know that.
You can kind of feel that. Yeah, it was so powerful. We will have the permanent MP3 link shared and sent out in a couple weeks for all the attendees, online and for in person. And that was captured on there. So it's just one of those things where it was just, and she is your child. She's up on there, crazy hair, like out to here, you know what I mean? And she's just like, I don't know what I'm doing here, but here I am. She just did her thing, which is like again, it's the lineage of your ancestors came through and back through all of it through that child. And it was such a powerful moment to witness. And so it was one of those things where it's just like and I think that's when everybody kind of alchemized at that point, was when actually Izzy came out on stage and just mentioned just the love for you, the love for this community, and how she was so proud of you, regardless if you were in the slammer or not. You know what I mean? And so that is where the pinpoint of the alchemy of, I feel, the whole energy of Soulogy Fest pivoted to something that was like, fuck you, don't mess with us. It really did. Like all the loose ends of everyone's story. And I'm going to be so excited to watch this series that you're running, because there's so many stories of the in-person attendees, also online. Everyone had issues coming here. There wasn't one flawless journey.
That was crazy.
Yeah. And that was just kind of those things where it's just like, why did so many people have issues attending Mulberry Mountain? You know what I mean? So it's one of those things that I feel like, yes, on the human scale, you're going to have so many testimonies of people's personal journeys and their pivot moment too. And, but the other thing that's going to happen is, and I feel like this is going to happen at a later date, is we're going to see whatever that was supposed to, the reason why we all had to gather, we're going to see the results of that pretty soon. And I'm pretty excited to see that, because I got a piece of it this past weekend when I attempted to camp in my happy place. And then all these things came at me and I'm like,
your work's not over.
It's not over. And then the funny thing is, on Saturday, we had so many tech issues. I've never seen Ty swear and kick things before, but that's what happened in the morning. So we had long days. I was up on that stage because that was the only place for Wi-Fi. So I had to get up at 9:30, prep the e-blast, and then send it out, and then wait 30 minutes for everyone that tells me that they had issues, and then manage everyone's issues of connections or whatever it is that they had issues with. So I was on stage usually the first in the morning, and we were there until taking out the garbage. I was like the last person out taking out the garbage, you know, kind of thing. Probably 12 to 13 hours, Ty, Serena, and I, every single day. It was like long ass days. And then I would take breaks in between. On Saturday, for 4 hours straight, we couldn't get the live stream working. And then I just said, Ty, fuck it, just stream it live. Stream it free, I don't care at this point. Just get it out there, right? And he goes, oh, all right, we can stream it free. So we hacked into your Facebook and we streamed it free. But then when you stream it free, you know, your audience is that wide, you get shut down really quickly by the Facebook police, right? Because spammers come on and all these like bots come on and they shut you down. So we got kicked off of Facebook trying to do it for free. And then so we just streamed it on YouTube. So that was like our 6th attempt of tech issues. So then the next morning I'm like, I cannot go through another day of that. It's like gonna like split my wrist. So I was like, okay, I need your help. I was like, Dragons, can you come? And the other thing is, so hot at Mulberry Mountain. It was so hot. I was like, I brought cute outfits to wear on stage. No, I just ended up wearing my sports bra because I had boob sweat and ass sweat for like 4 days straight. And I'm like, there's no point looking cute. When the sports bra goes on, it's serious business, man. Like, and so then on Sunday, I was like, okay, I've had enough. We got to keep the live stream secured, and I'm going to bring in the Dragons. So the Dragons came back. They left you. They came back, and they brought in so much beautiful air. Like it started cool down by 4 degrees. We had a breeze coming up there, and it was so great. And then we had the stage. We started the stage up again, and it was so funny because one of the stories, I have to share this story because it's so funny. Savetta Da Vinci, she came up on stage. We had beautiful breeze for a good 2 hours. It felt great up there. And then she came on stage. That woman has so much fire. She shut down my air. Like, she was on stage for like 45 minutes. We started sweating again. The air was dead. The fire lit up. And I'm like, get that woman off stage. I can't breathe. She's too hot for this day. So I was telling Ty, like, get her off. I can't breathe. So Ty's like, okay, Sveta, like wind it down. So as soon as she wound it down, the breeze started picking up again. It was incredible, the amount of energy that every person brought in on stage. And it was like just different people doing different things. But that was probably the most visceral of like the opposing energies that I was working with, like in terms of the Dragons versus Savetta's like hot
Right.
I don't know. She's like a sexy goddess of heat, man. Like, do not mess with that woman. So it was interesting to witness that. And then when I would take breaks in the middle of the day just to get quiet time, eat some lunch, and then I walk back to the cottage. So the walk from the cottage to the stage takes me about 25 minutes. Every day I do that like twice a day. And then Ashley would drive me when it gets too hot. But on the last day, I almost stepped on a 3-foot green snake. Like, this thing was huge. And
Wow.
I was texting on my phone and not paying attention, and 6 inches away from stepping on it. When I came across, my heart, I was just like, holy crap, if I had shit, I would have shit my pants. You know, it was terrifying. And I'm like, you mean this field has snakes in it? And I didn't know this entire time. I was walking across it like just all free loving and not paying attention to like all these snakes in the grass. And it showed itself, and I'm just sitting there like, oh, okay. So that was, for me, snakes is also one of those iconic things I am deathly fearful of. Not scared of anything else. You know, demons you can throw at me, but if you throw snakes at me, I just totally lose my shit. And so I had to calm down, back away, and I took one picture, and then I ran to the stage because I was just like, there. And then I Googled, and I'm like, did you know Arkansas is home to 36 snakes? And 6 of them are deadly. And I'm like, why am I here? So it's one of those things where it's just like, and then that's when on Monday, when the dragons came back in that night, and we closed it off. And you know what? It started raining as well. So the storm moved in, and you can see the cloud formation change on Sunday. So all the thunderstorms that we were forecasted, we didn't actually have any until Sunday. We had a little bit on Saturday night, but most of it came in on Sunday, right? And then the funny thing is, on Saturday night, I'm not going to name names just in case, but there was a very sweet woman called the Candy Woman, and she was handing out party favors, microdosing my guests on mushrooms and other things. So the funniest thing out of all of it, I killed myself laughing. So I'm doing the last garbage run. It is raining. People are like, you know, high, and they're kind of on the ground and not getting up. And I'm trying to get garbage out, like out of those cans. And those cans are about the same height as me. So it's quite comical watching me trying to get these out. And it's dark. Everybody knows that. It's so dark up there. And I'm like kicking bodies. And I'm like, who are you? I'm like, oh, excuse me. I need to take this garbage out. And I'm like, why are you high at the festival? Go over to the campgrounds. You know what I mean? Like ushering people. But it was one of those things where and the entire time, like, I can't believe this is happening. I'm like taking out the garbage amongst women that are on the ground passed out, you know, kind of mean, just living their life.
Plant medicine.
And that was kind of like the visceral thing of the whole festival. It was just insane and comical and like madness, but still very sweet and compassion. And there's like weaving of love somewhere in there. And then like, it was just a lot. It was crazy. And then when you were actually officially released, we were at, so we did a little bit of sightseeing at Eureka Springs, finally, on the Monday. You were released on the Monday, right?
I was released on Tuesday.
Was it Tuesday? I can't remember. Okay,
yeah.
So we were doing sightseeing.
Oh, no, you're right. I was released on Monday. You're right.
Yeah,
Monday, 6 a.m. Well, I was released to go to Houston. Yeah.
Yes, but then you were released from Houston. The girls picked you
I was released at 6 a.m. Monday morning, to go to Houston, and I walked out of Houston at 3 o'clock in the afternoon Tuesday.
Yes. So when you were released, we were actually at the chapel. I think it's called Thornhill Crown Chapel. So it's this really cool architecture, unreal energy, really beautiful. Whoever did the architecture there, props to them, because they were able to really work with the energy forms there and kind of amplify it. But that's when the news came through. And I'm like, oh, he literally is Jesus. Like you had to be released. And I got the news right when I was standing in the chapel, looking up and feeling, what is the point of this? Like, you're staring up sometimes when you have that moment of quietness.
Yeah.
And the wind was blowing through, and I'm staring at this amazing architecture, and I'm just in awe of its power and feeling insignificant. And that's when the news comes through, and I'm like, dude couldn't write a better narrative. Like the timing is impeccable. I don't understand it, but it's impeccable.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't know that about Izzy, um, and the way you described it, and there's always multiple purposes and multiple meanings, and going into the whole thing. I think everybody knows August was a motherfucker. I mean, it was like nobody got out unscathed, and there was just a lot of stuff happening. I saw the end of so many different cycles through the whole period of time, especially the drive to Houston, in what I was being shown, and even in this incarnation. So, like, what you said about Izzy, or even this experience with the Soulogy consciousness, or Morgan and myself, or my children and myself, and how everything is the same replication of what's occurring. And it was all about things coming into our timelines collapsing, and the true timeline taking hold, and you could call it healing, whatever it is. But like this whole thing stemmed from a situation that was the catalyst for me to go into full independence and full, this crazy lifestyle. And so there were, being that it's a family, especially with, I was having 6 children, and of course extended Mexican Spanish family. I have a lot of, extended family members, and all the different stuff, right? And that it all started here in Houston, the homelessness, or whatever you want to call it, whatever, right out here on these streets just a block over, and that it's ending up here. So there's all these things going on, but a couple of things that I think are important. One, just I guess maybe because on a personal level, like this whole thing with Izzy kicking off, or stabilizing, or initiating, or whatever, catalyzing that moment and bringing everything into alignment. One of the things that Morgan was telling me, and even my son told me, was that once Morgan and my kids and you started interacting, my kids became closer again. And this particular episode, this accusation, this false accusation, was, everyone knew the truth. And so, I don't know, something happened there, and Izzy is a powerful soul. All my kids are. She left home at, Izzy style at 15 years old in the year 2017, which, if that was 50 years ago, that's normal. But for a kid to do that, and so very much different, very much like she told you when she had the conversation with you on the subject we won't mention. And she said, I'm a grown-ass woman. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want to do, right? So that whole attitude, but still she was a little bit different than the rest of them. And so I see that how that's all kind of come together, and that's pretty cool. But I think it's important to mention too that once I got to Houston, I knew the Harris County system. I was in there for 34 days 10 years ago, and I was in a high risk pod, and it wasn't really pleasant. But I made it, and everything was cool. So when I got here, I was expecting the same thing, and I thought, shit, I can handle all this. And when I go and hopefully I'll get out quick, and I'll get bonded out quick, and I won't have to go sit in a cell for 3, 4, 5, 6 days. So when I got there, I realized they had changed everything. So in the detention center, they have a couple of 3 courtrooms, and they have this big area that's like an airport, just a bunch of chairs, and that's it. They had about 10, 12 bathrooms with just like a bar door on them, no toilet paper in any of the bathrooms, as far as I could tell, and all these people sleeping on the floor and in chairs. And I would say there was 700 people there. So I sit down. It's it's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'll get out 24 hours later. I sit down, and amongst all these people, 95% of them, I would say, are what people would refer to as undesirables. These are people that are getting arrested and rearrested and rearrested and rearrested in this this matrix paradigm that's all about making money in the prison system, and et cetera, et cetera. So I sit down, and there's a TV screen above me, and they're running this newscast, and which is interesting because there's no cameras allowed in this area, but they're showing the area. It's just the report they just put together, like in the last 24 hours. There was a public outcry because 1,000 people had been kept in this facility, getting bologna, 2 pieces of bologna, 2 pieces of bread, and 4 cookies a day, 3 times a day, drinking, faucet water, sleeping on the floor, sitting in chairs, just waiting. And just so you know, it smelled like an ecstatic dance with a bunch of hippies, the entire place. So it was a pretty interesting place. But anyway, so I'm watching this news report. 1,000 people have been here for 24 hours. 500 have been here for 48 hours, and 200 have been here for 4 days. And the public didn't know about it. The sheriff's on there saying, hey, we're doing the best we can. And so I'm now bearing witness to some type of deconstruction, like the truth came out. It's not going to be allowed to continue. Something's got to change. No one knows what the fuck to do because they're all working within this dualistic system, and it's just kind of like mass hysteria. So you're seeing fatigue, sadness, anger, irrational emotions. You're seeing the whole kit and caboodle. You've got a bunch of uniformed people walking around. It's very much a European. Doesn't matter your story. You're just a piece of crap. Sit there, shut up, and don't say anything. But you're also getting this big group of people going, hey, fuck this shit. I'm not getting off the floor. I'm sleeping down here. You can kiss my ass. Like there's so many of them. What are you going to do? Right?
Yeah.
So we go through this, and I'm pretty good. I was only got emotional when I talked to you the first time in jail with the first call in Arkansas. Then I got emotional like at 3 a.m. with my daughter because I was getting irrational. I did not want to go into a cell. I was just irrational. I was breaking. And my daughter said something to me, and I went off on her, and it was like a 2-minute breakdown. And then later on, about 6 a.m, I started to have another one. And now I'm realizing I'm getting out. The judge has come back. Didn't even see the judge. He says, you don't need to pay a bond. You can get out free. So I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm back. I'm getting, I'm catching the intuitive wires and the true reality, and I'm not caught up in the story. So I'm sitting there, and there's still about 500 people there. It's about 5 a.m, and all the guards come out, and they announce that they're going to do a prisoner count. And everyone needs to get off the floor and sit in a chair with no spaces in between anybody, and we're going to get through this. Now they're kicking people. They're throwing bags of bologna at people. It's just fucked up. And there's a black guy about 6 seats down from me that had not said anything to this point. Now people are starting to get into the chair. They're getting the stragglers off the floor. This goes on for like 10 or 15 minutes. And this guy just starts channeling like some incredible Messiah stuff. Like, I'm talking like, it was like Woody Harrelson in that movie, Apocalypse movie, where he's a crazy guy on the mountain, I mean, it was crazy. He just started like spitting fire. And so these 2 cops came over to him, and they took him to the padded cell. And then there was it was segregated. So I was the first chair, first row with the men, and there was a space, and then there was the women. And there was a lady in the last row who turned around, looks directly at me. Like, out of all the people, looks directly. I haven't said anything. And she says something to me that was just like it was just like an energetic bomb. And it was like, who are you? Or like something like, I can't even explain it. I don't even know what it was, So she starts spitting fire. They come and get her, and they take her to the padded cell. So now I'm sitting there, and I can feel something going on. And all of a sudden, just like, when your higher self comes in and just starts saying stuff, I'm like, I just kind of half shouted and half screamed, you think we're all criminals, but we're not. And you think you're all law-abiding, but you're not. And so then 2 of them came over to me, and I thought, well, I'm going to go to the padded cell. And they just stand there, and they're looking at me, and I didn't know what else to do. I'm just looking at them. And they just walked away. And so that was the times I, started to break. But what I was watching was the whole deconstruction of this part of the matrix. And I was released I was told I was going to get out at 6 a.m. I didn't get out till 3 p.m. But when I left, there was less than 100 people left. And the word on the streets was they were told in its entirety, don't arrest anybody, which really meant don't go harass the people that we always arrest and rearrest. And because it's imploding, you know. So there was something going on there. There was a lot of Yeshua presence. There was a lot of galactic presence. There was a tremendous amount of nature, inner earth presence coming from Arkansas to Houston. But there was also a lot of really dark, I say dark, I don't mean like I was scared, but like there was a lot of dark energy that has been in control and existing and pre-existing, that were kind of like standing on the peripheral of the room in resignation. Almost like you could just picture a bunch of soldiers against the wall in a dark attire, reptilian, whatever image you want to pull up, with their weapons laid down, just kind of like this. Okay, this shit's over. I saw a lot of that. So I think, and then the other thing too, what I got was, as I was experiencing it, and especially as I was being shown from Arkansas to Houston in the car, the two things that came up were, because it was all these cycles coming to an end of one big cycle coming to an end. And it was 10 years ago, you lost your freedom, and you found freedom, and you found your soul, and then the journey, you know. And this time, look what it was like. You lost your freedom, and what happened? Nothing, right? You didn't carry a charge, but then what I really got from it was like, and people talk about freedom codes, but when I came out of it, I knew that as a collective or something, that there was a huge expulsion of freedom codes. I felt the freedom. Like I came out of there smelling like a wild pig. Okay, I mean, I smelled so bad. It's raining, pouring rain, and I'm running down the street and pushing, you know, I call Morgan. And it's raining all over me, and there's nowhere to go. And so it was very irrational, but the freedom part of it, like I'm running around the middle of downtown Houston, and it's, you know, some of those downtown areas, they're working on the streets. There's no sidewalk. There's no cover. And I'm trying to find a place and talk to my wife. And, but the level of freedom was just like something I knew was way beyond me. Right. Yeah. That's all I remember. Yeah. So
much.
Well,
so
I mean,
much. I think that.
Yeah. Well,
I think one of the biggest things. So that's I think that's the human layer, right? So we went through the human layer of it.
Yeah.
So I think the second layer of it, which we can kind of walk into, is the spiritual side of it, or the magic, esoteric, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And one of the things is that I found interesting is, so prior to this, when you had planned Soulogy Fest, you're like, okay, well, let's do this weekend. Are you available? And I said, that's so weird, because I literally am booked so far ahead in my world. It's stupid. But that one weekend for Soulogy Fest was open. That was the only weekend my entire summer that was open. So I'm like, okay, I'm in. But then I said, remember that question? I struggled. The first Soulogy Fest I helped with because I wanted to do it. I always had on my bucket list was to plan a retreat or a festival like that, just to be part of it. And then once I got that done, I was kind of over it, and then I wanted to move on. So when you wanted to do the second Soulogy Fest, I needed a reason that was not me. Like I needed you to say something that would be engaging enough for me to hold my attention. Otherwise, I get bored really quickly, right? And I needed you to say it out loud. I knew what the answer was, but it took you a long time to get there. And one of the things is, one of the themes that is so strong is self-sabotage in this community, right? And self-sabotage comes from your own valuation system, where you feel like you're not enough. Even though we are born as ascended masters into this world, we were born enough. But for whatever reason, somewhere along the lines, people have that interlaced into their own narrative that they're not enough. So for you, I wanted to hear that, because I knew that was really important. And if you were going to say that out loud, then I'd be like, okay, buddy, I know this is going to hurt like a bitch, but I'm in. I will ride shotgun with you, and I'm going to have new holes up there where I didn't want it, but I'm in. And you finally said it. You're like, I want to commit to the point of the next level where I stop self-sabotaging, because that is a huge collective theme, right? Where we are born with these geniuses, but we always kind of cut ourselves short 5 minutes before the whole magic happens, right? For whatever reason. So then for me, I was really excited. I'm like, this is going to be fun, right? I'm going to go do this.
Entertaining.
And I used to have a hardcore God Savior complex where I used to think I needed to go around and rescue a whole bunch of like homeless puppies or whatever you want to call it. And that would make me feel good. And then I realized I need to stop doing that, because I run, then what happens is through that, I actually enable people to play out a victim role, because I have to play a savior role. So I'm like, I collapsed that probably when my son was born, because a lot of humility was birthed with my first child. And so instead I kind of re-scripted and I talk about like, I will engage in drama just to stay entertained for this lifetime. So instead of saving people, if you're really interesting, then I have a need to just be part of that craziness. Because the nice thing is I could check out. I could get back on the airplane, go back to my life, right? I don't need to actually be part of it. So the weird thing is, when I was in Maui, I really didn't want to go. Like, I didn't want to go. I was like, I don't want to go. And I kept saying that. And Chris is like, but you were so excited. You're going to see your friend. And it's Mulberry Mountain, and you're going to hang out with a bunch of hippies. I'm like, I know, but I don't want to go anymore. And he goes, well, why? I'm like, I don't know. I couldn't logically work through it. And I was like, I think I'll just call him and say, I don't want to go, right? But then I was thinking, if I don't go, he'll be screwed. And I'm not being dramatic, or I'm not being egoic. I just had this feeling, if I didn't go, you would really be screwed, right? Even though you would figure it out, but it would really be painful. Like, there's funny painful, and then there's really painful. So if you can stay on the funny painful side, it's a little bit more manageable. So then I asked you outright, that conversation. I was like, do you want me to be there? Do you remember that conversation?
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah. And you're like, yeah, no, I really want you to be there. I'm like, fuck. This is going to be so painful.
I had no idea, or I would have said no.
I know. And I'm like, oh, all right, I guess I'm going to go. So that was the thing. And there was a couple of nights where my cabin, I had another guest, like another bunkmate with me. So Ashley Lee was there on the first night, and then Robert Evans was with me on the last night, just because of accommodations and shifting. But I was by myself for 4 of the nights. And one of the things I could not shake about it, and I was trying to feel into it, because I'm really good at feeling into stuck entities that are in space, or if they're stuck within the home, or stuck within the land, or just something else, just something that's wandering. And I couldn't sleep for those 4 nights, because it just felt so creepy and eerie. Like, there was moments where I'm sitting there, I'm like, why does it feel my cottage feels so awful, right? And I was going through my usual, like, trying to talk to it, but it wouldn't communicate back. And then I was trying to feel it out. And even to this day, I don't know why, but my cottage was super creepy. So I was actually quite grateful that I had bunkmates on the first day and the last day. But when I came back, and then I was like scheduled to go to another, I go camping a lot every weekend during the summer. That's what we did as a family. And I was scheduled to go to Whistler, which is actually one of the biggest mountain regions for our area. And it's one of my favorite places. We've been there for 7 years. Love that place. This weekend, I went there and I didn't want to be there. On the one day, my whole family, we were literally like drained of our energy. Like, our battery was just drained down. I didn't have much motivation, didn't like want to move except to eat and pee. Like, I took multiple naps, and everybody felt the same. And it was sunny. It was like, and the campground was full, but it was dead. There was no like live energy circulating through it. It was so weird. And then I realized what was happening when it actually took, when I left off the mountain, that whatever happened at Mulberry Mountain now we're talking about, this is where you get a little bit more complex on the grid working and the code exchange and all that. So whatever happened on Mulberry Mountain, there is a lot of density there. Yeah. There is a lot. And I understand some of it may be Atlantis space, where there are like stolen technology that was embedded in the crystals, and then it was covertly covered with it, right? And so some of us that have that key gene, I would say for Atlantis, you can really feel the density for it, because you're like, it's almost like home is almost at your doorstep, but you can't touch it. And that's what it felt like for me. It was like, it was so orgasmic, but so not there. It was the strangest feeling. So when I was in Whistler, it felt like I dumped all of that darkness that was on Mulberry Mountain onto Whistler and let Whistler process whatever it was that it needed to process. Because it's kind of like the mountains hold secrets, right? That different beds hold secrets. So it'd be interesting to see. So there's that part of it. There's the bigger part of it where you're like, what actually is going on? Like, there's beautiful parts of it where I love how your cycle of your family lineage started with that arrest warrant, that bogus arrest warrant, and then it ended. Your children actually were the ones that's created the freedom codes for you. You know what I mean? Even though they were the ones that created it to begin with, they undid it. So they actually undid their own work. And so I love that story of it. But then there's also, and then every guest that comes on and shares the screen with you for their own journey will have their own interpretation of what happened to them. But then what happens is when we come out of the macro, there's going to be this catastrophic, I'm feeling like really huge thing where we're just like, is that, it's not about, you know, Huong sweating her balls on stage or you sleeping on like, you know, a toilet paper roll. There's something bigger that happened, and we don't know what that feels like. And yet, but it happened.
There's no doubt. And I was told there were 6 places it was happening in the world that weekend. 6 places that were semi-obscure that carried the type of power like a Sedona, right? And I was told 4 of them were in the United States. I know that just from my own transmissions and all the weeks leading up to it, and with other people like Delia, there was somebody in the Rockies. There was some other mountain ranges involved, and so I know that there were beings that showed themselves to me that were I would consider in the mountain, not inner earth, but I guess it's maybe the same thing, that had not shown themselves, or they had not even appeared. That I just refer to them as these primordial nature beings or mountain beings, and like what you're talking about, and they were coming out, and they were like, the way it felt to me, they were like guardians. They were also kind of pissed, and they weren't there to fuck around. And they were like probably the biggest voice. There was 2 of them that spoke to me of all the beings that spoke to me from the mountain. And so the other thing I think now that you're saying what you're saying, because everything came from there. And what I mean by that is, let's say post-Atlantis, and it's not the only place, but all the stories that I revisited and was shown through the land shapeshifting for 10 or 12,000 years, what Franco referred to as when we made a shift, when we chose to have an inverted 3D matrix. Everything I was shown, all the stories I was shown, even though it wasn't sad, it was still showing all of the human, all of the human frailties and all the human emotional journeys and the injustices and so on. But it all stemmed from like a lie, basically, like a lie. And I was watching it all. So what you're talking about really makes a lot of sense. And then I think the other thing that's really important, because there's multiple things. There's multi, we think multidimensional. What's that really going to be like in body? Well, that means you're going to have a lot of different things going on at one time. Or like if you look at Elsa Dillon, who was on yesterday, her entire family has a relationship with a parallel family that's exactly them in another realm from Egypt, right? That it's, you know what I mean? So these types of things, these multifaceted things. But I think in terms of like what was happening in Sedona, what was landing, what was I a part of, not the only one, was this whole thing with the mother coming in and say it's game time. Like enough of the BS. The feminine's here, the third energy's here, now the masculine. You're our creator. You got to go make it happen. Doesn't matter what anyone thinks. You go do it your way. It's not going to make any sense. It doesn't matter. Whoever says anything, Morgan says anything, you go do this, right? I took it on. And so in terms of self-sabotage, what I see, and like the show we did 6 weeks ago, co-creating from the chaos, we didn't know what we were talking about. We were having a discussion, like, let's just go on and talk about it, right? But it was real. And so this is what I saw. What I saw was, if you look at the surface, Todd goes to jail, forget about the whys and the how, whatever, all that. Now you've got Huong there, who doesn't know anybody, has 197 friends on Facebook, and here she is in the middle of Arkansas, the sophisticated...
Well, I have under 100.
Oh, you have over... What? Here's this... That's the last time I saw. But here's this sophisticated Canadian, successful woman, chill chick, comes out looking to have a little, go look at some antiques and listen to some music and see what's going on because of her curiosity. Thrown in with this whole mixing pot and all these stories, because there was a lot of people that had car trouble. There was a lot of people that had to hitch rides.
Yes.
And all this stuff and all this resistance was there, right? And I think the illusion of self-sabotage is really nothing more than we throw in the towel and we lose faith. And if you remember when I was in Sedona and I merged or experienced equilibrium with the dark feminine, what the mother told me was, this is a part of me that I don't even know. I can't even explain. This is my womb, basically. And so what that is to the human is pure chaos. You don't know what it is. It's the abyss. It's the void. It's the holy darkness. And what I saw was not one person, but this whole conglomerate of people, not just the people that were on the mountain, people that were connected other ways, people like Morgan, people like my kids that weren't there, people that were like connected through the live stream or whatever, right? How they didn't throw in the towel. They actually created, or really co-created, from what was apparent chaos. And I believe what you're saying is absolutely 1,000,000% true, that the time's going to come very quickly where on more than just me and you and Morgan talking, or you and someone else talking that was there, that it's going to become very apparent and obvious that something very huge happened that's not really in our level of comprehension right now, because we're not quite there and it would be too far out there, but we're really close. And once that happens, once you have, let's say it was even like 500 people in the Soulogy community that went, snap, I remember what happened at Atlantis, or I remember what went on that mountain, or whatever it is, and we're all going, yes, okay, like that's the type of memory that I think is going to come in. And I think if I look at my experience over the last few weeks, that's the way the information's been coming in. Even in the back of that Tahoe, it was coming in so clear, like you and me when we met, and Morgan, and we met in Kauai. It was that vivid, like it was that, but it was coming in so fast, which is what a lot of people have been reporting the last few weeks, that they're having all this information come in. And I don't think it's come in, it's been somewhat conscious, but I don't think we've had enough time for it to really sink in and marinate, right? And I think that's what you're referring to. So, yeah.
Yeah, because one of the things is like when you are in a space like that. So the first thing that I found really interesting is I knew that I didn't want to go to Soulogy Fest because it was going to be painful, but I went anyways, right? And then I knew coming home that it wasn't done. Like, when you just celebrate, you're like, oh, I'm on the airplane, thank God. And I sent you a picture of me drinking. And I'm like, I will be officially 10,000 kilometers away from you. My life will be so much better. But no, there's residual stuff you have to process on your own, in your own kind of energy field. Yeah. So it's one of those things that so for myself, I went camping, which is my natural happy bubble. and I didn't get any joy from it because I was still processing. And then I accidentally sucked in my entire family to help process it. Like even my son was like, why is my mom so weird? Now I also need to nap, kind of thing. And it became a running joke because no one wanted to do anything. And my daughter, who normally doesn't want to do anything, she was excited that we weren't doing anything, right? But it's those things where it's just like, and I know Julie DeHara Roberts, she was watching this as well. So she has lots of theories, I would say, backed with facts of like, she's kind of like a archaeologist when it comes to mapping out the esoteric histories, right? And she has lots of theories about where the ley lines were and where you were and the intersexuality of all of those. But the key thing for the Mulberry Mountain really is something in those crystal beds.
Yes.
And it really is, those crystal beds have a lot of darkness locked into it because it is protecting some obviously high level information that could actually bring us instantly to the next evolution of our experience. But that's what we were confronted with, right? And all the powerful ones, I'm telling you, everyone that made that trip out of there, you should be so proud of yourself because for myself, I knew it was challenging. That was the most challenging part. It wasn't about actually running Soulogy Fest and collecting garbage. The most challenging part was the confrontation of Mulberry Mountain. And I don't think anyone has said that out loud yet, that it was assaulting. It was not friendly. You were meeting this like archaic energy form that you felt familiar. And you're like, oh shit, I know this feeling. It's something is there. And all of these people that were there were part of the creation of it. I feel like it's one of those things that, yes, we have memory loss somewhere down the lineage. And yes, it's an elaborate story to keep us engaged in our current reality. But it's still a key part of fulfillment, I feel. So everyone that's watching on broadcast, if this resonates with you, that's because something had happened there. And you were part of that soul group that has the key codes for it, right? Whether you were online or not, doesn't matter. It's one of those things where it's just like something very definitely deep and dark happened at Mulberry Mountain. And the freedom codes, you talk about the freedom codes, it's part of your world, but expands out to the collective. The freedom codes are held there.
Even like that Monday, the 22nd, was was it Tuesday? Anyway, I was going up and down the mountain, and the mountain was telling me, and I agree. It was like an ayahuasca-esque type of thing where it's all good, like Kali energy, but you're about to get shaken, right? And I was very aware of it, and I was very much in reverence of it, and I was watching my ass, and I'll be straight up with you. I was looking forward to getting you at the airport, getting back to the cabin, taking a beer and a whiskey and a joint, and just sitting in the darkness and just chilling after we whatever we do, right? I knew, don't take a puff, don't have a beer, don't nothing. You respect, you respect this because something was going down. And even when I came back to meet Sandra and Alan before I went back to the airport to get you, I got lost. I got lost up there, and you can't hardly get lost up there. There's only one road. But I got lost by 6 miles. So something was already brewing. I could feel it in my gut. And the mountain was kind of letting me know, because I feel like that I have a pretty good relationship with the mountain. Like, even though I wasn't physically there, most of my relation has been with it at the foot of the mountain or just through the ethers. But yeah, I think they're definitely, it's almost like if we know the truth alone, and we will, of what you're referring to and feeling, everything that happened after that goes away. It just gets wiped out. And so it's like beyond a leap or an expansion. It's like a quantum. kind of thing. Like we would literally just, be in a total different state. We would even have the same perspectives. It would be crazy. So I think it's coming out. And I wouldn't be surprised if it comes out this month. And maybe it's through this series of interviews that we're going to do.
I think the series of interviews, I think that's pretty key. Sadly, I wasn't able to actually talk to a lot of people because I was holding own space. In terms of just running the festival, again, that's superficial, but it was the whole space, just making sure everyone was safe. And it was really weird because as a mother, of course, there's mother bear energy. I'm very protective, right, of the family. And the guests over the weekend became my family. I was very protective of that. And I made sure that everyone, if you were dancing near the edge of the stage, for example, I'd shove you back closer to the or if you were microdosed, I made sure you went safely back to bed at the campsite. But those are just superficial things. There was bigger plays happening. And it was just like holding space for all that. And I know there were a lot of people that clicked into it. Because you can feel it when I'm up on there and I'm still doing like, superficial things like moderating the feed on YouTube, and like you can feel certain clicks. I can feel it. It would be like shift and I'll be like, oh, someone clicked in. I can feel the click in of the individuals coming through. And I can't really do that when I'm mingling with people because what happens is it gets kind of entangled and I can't feel that, right? So I do carve out tons of space to be by myself. But when people start clicking in, then you can kind of see more of the key codes passing through. And then you kind of see glimpses. Because my last, I don't know if I've told this story, but my last working memory, I haven't reincarnated before. This is my last reincarnation until Atlantis went down. But my last memory of Atlantis going down is I was actually shoving, they called the temple keepers. So each temple, there are 12 temples that hold different functionalities and strengths of the Atlantis world. I would shove them into portals and just ship them off into secrecy. And I feel like this world, the only reason I'm here besides the food and the sex is to make sure that whatever I hid comes back online. You know what I mean? And there's been there was one instance in Yellowstone, again, another just a vortex of energy. I was able to kind of figure out one zone, but Mulberry Mountain definitely was another one where I was just like, I feel like home, but home is distorted. Like you can feel that heart space expand, but then you're like blocked, right? So it's one of those things where it's just like so close, but you are confronted with so much darkness before you get to that point. And that part of the spectrum recognizes those key players, and which is everybody that was on that mountain and online and in the ether space, recognizes that that's where one of the codes are hidden is in Mulberry Mountain, right? Yeah, because that's why everyone had car problems, but no one died. Like I was so pleased no one died. It was so really worth it. Well, but really, it was. That's how bad it could have been. People could have died.
Well, listen, when we first rolled it out, and I made contact with like 3 or 4 people on very short notice. Do you want to come to Mulberry Mountain of all places in the middle of nowhere? Sandra Walter wrote me back, and she said whatever she said, and then she said, "Oh, so you guys are going to be on top of a mountain on the crystal beds in Arkansas during this time period," because it was the same time period that Morgan was been referring to, right? She goes, "You're very, very brave," and it wasn't an LOL. It wasn't like an LOL or anything either. So Delia sent me. She sends me a little, her little channels now and then. What she had picked up on the other day, she was saying it sounds a lot like what you're talking about. She said the shift that went down and all the people that made it. The common thing as she was seeing in the field was patterns. In the patterns of the field these were grid workers, timeline jumpers, time stream healers, earth keepers that knew her power or that know her power, the Divine Mother in all her facets. So I don't know, but like listening to you now and then thinking about, okay, we're going to be talking to more and more people that were there. I would imagine we're going to do 40, 50 shows on this or maybe more.
Well, at least because I know there was 70 in attendance in person, and online we when it was live streaming for free, we hit about like over 100, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I know like you would do at least 40 or 50 because everyone's voice is so important in the weaving of this tapestry, right?
Yeah.
And that's part of it. And the reason it went sideways was so that we could pay attention to it. That's how the universe works, right?
Yeah.
If everything went tickety-boo, you're going to forget it.
Yeah.
The extreme polarities, it doesn't register in our memory that long. But this one's going down in the history book.
No, that's right. So, and before this show, Morgan and I were talking because last night she couldn't sleep, and then she realized we were supposed to connect, so we connected, and then I thought she fell asleep, so I just hung up after a while. But there was some stuff that came through. But then through the night, she got something, and through the night and lucid dreams, I was getting something. So I was talking to her about it. And I was telling her, I think I know what September's about. And I'm not going to go into the details because it was just my own little transmission. But what's important is that basically what I told her was, I'm going to be on my toes because of what you're saying, because it could very well follow the same pattern, although it doesn't feel that way to me, of where you have this crisis and kind of chaotic crises energy that accentuates the experience and the lesson and the coding, which is what you're talking about. In other words, if it was all peaches and cream, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wouldn't stick. It's the whole energy of that polarization that magnifies everything, and then you take it in and go, oh, okay, yeah. So yeah, I think that was a really good point, and I think as we talk to more people, we're going to get more code in real time. It's going to come out as we're doing it. Because I've already started to get validation and more alignment just based on what you're telling me, because I just hadn't gone there yet. I hadn't, but I can see that absolutely, because it made no sense to go to Mulberry Mountain with 8 weeks notice and break the mold of festivals. I mean, there's so many different, right? I mean, but so many people said I've got to go. I have to go. I don't know why I have to go. And it was just like, in a way, energetically, don't take this wrong, but like being in that big room in Houston with 600-700 people, the undesirables, the misfits, the black sheep, the meek, the outcast, that's the energy. Like I was walking around and I felt like Jesus was walking next to me. It was weird.
Yeah.
You know, it was like loaves and fishes. And so like the energy of the people that came, it wasn't like a homogenous type of characteristic in the field. It was all over the place. Total diversity, you know, all walks of life, all came in all different vehicles and ways and means. And that to me in itself represents a greater level of unity, consciousness, and oneness because of the openness, right?
Yeah.
And nobody died.
Nobody died. It's a success story, people. In my books, that's a success story, because the thing is, like, when you're, I mean, we can laugh about it because honestly, no one has died, but it could have gone so bad, right? Where it could have gone so bad. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
But one of the things is, I want to circle back to you. One of the other gifts that happened out of the crisis, and I know you say this all the time, so I want to finish this on this note.
Right.
I think it's so poignant, is that in the community of what you call the undesirables, whatever that means, you're just not, you don't feel like acknowledged, you don't feel like you're seen or heard, all of that, right? And then in this community that you have curated, which is so beautiful, is people are looking for, one of the expectations that immediately had to drop, and I hope this is a really strong lesson for everyone that's in attendance, is that you don't need to be seen or heard. The external validation of like having Todd Medina not there, because they wanted to be heard and seen by you.
Right.
You weren't there. Sorry, people, it was just me. You know what I mean? It's just like, joke's on you. Self-validation. You're up to that. In addition to like dropping the self-sabotage, self-validation is the freedom code. That is part of the freedom code. Understanding your genius. You're going to walk with your genius. You don't need validation from anybody. You
Right.
just own it. You do it.
Right.
It's time for you to execute, right? So that is without you there, that was the big shift. So when Izzy came up on stage, that was the alchemy that she catalyzed, was just that you don't need validation from anybody.
Yeah.
It's here. You were born with it. You are enough. Now go do something with it. You know what I mean? That makes you fulfilled. And it doesn't have to be exotic, and it doesn't have to be so crazy. You don't need to do all these grid work or whatever Morgan does. I still don't understand. She does these dodecahedron stuff. It doesn't need to be that. The self-fulfillment is driven by you. It could be as simple as just taking in the beauty of the ocean, or appreciating your meal, or appreciating the fact that, you are there walking along with other people. It doesn't have to be so crazy. The access point for fulfillment is understanding that you are enough.
Yeah.
And you don't need to be seen by anybody. It's just you. It's always been you.
Right on.
But that couldn't have happened if you weren't there. That was the irony of all of this.
There was a lot of
irony.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, though. Yeah, because, people know, Morgan and I have said it for years, this is a platform for the voices of the Mother Goddess. I hope people understand that, metaphorically speaking. We can talk about this till we're blue in the face, whatever, with the semantics. But the point is that last year I knew from my relationship with, infinite intelligence that we were some part of full anchoring of the divine feminine. We saw evidence of that with the Black Hawk helicopters, Pamela Johnson speaking at that time, and all that we've talked about before. But this time my understanding was that they would be stepping forth. These voices would be stepping forth. And again, they don't have to step in front of a microphone. That's not what it's about. It's actually what you're talking about, which is to walk around and being comfortable in your own skin and being yourself and not being self-conscious about it. That would be how I would describe it. But many of the women that I talk to that come out of nowhere, and I meet literally as this is happening, stepping up and helping brothers and sisters, and also saying, hey, I know it's time. And then I got a kick out of it because when I was talking to you, and you were writing to me the other day, and you were telling me that you pretty much got everybody up on the stage. And that was the whole point. That was my only focus. And I would tell every one of them, they'd be like, no, don't bring the camera. I saw Catherine Knoll. She left and came back. And I told her before she left, I'm like, you're going to come up on stage with me. Because my idea was I would just sit in a chair, put a chair next to me, and we would have like little Soul Speak 5D episodes, 15 minutes, and get everybody up there so people could get to know them, and then we could be exposed to their code. But it tickled me because you told me that's what you did. I'm like, look, there it goes. Like the consciousness itself has a power. You can call it the third energy, whatever you want to call it. But the collectiveness of it, those people that went, to your point, these weren't just people getting the call. This was like that movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, like where people get this vision of the mountain and they all got to go and leave their lives. I mean, this is the same type of energy. And it was, and I'll just end it with this. To me, I just kept hearing, I've not felt anything beyond biblical since I woke up 11 years ago, for the first 2 years, mostly the first year. I kept feeling beyond biblical. Not literally, but just as an energetic metaphor. Like, what does that feel like? Beyond biblical. It's beyond anything profound or reverent that I can imagine. And I saw other people referring to it that way. Plus, I've been privy, as you have, to people's personal expansions and transformations as a result. And we're not even, like, it hasn't even sunk in yet, to your point. Yeah. It's way beyond everything. So, look.
The embodiment part of it is so multi-layered. I think a lot of people are going to take like weeks to months to process it, to understand what actually happened that weekend that unfolded. So it'll be interesting to see that. And the other thing that I just, so the women, and we had a couple men. I think we had 5 men on there. The women that came up and just were, they've always wanted to do this, but they just never had the courage to do it, and they still did it. Those were the ones that inspired me the most. I think out of everything, if I was gifted with anything throughout all of this, I was gifted to bear witness to the courage of these women that pushed through regardless. Like for me, it's easy. I'm pig-headed, stubborn, determined. You know what I mean? Like I'm built for that. But to watch the softer ones that have always been told you're not enough.
Right.
You can't do it. You're whatever. They've always been told that, and they still did it.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that I am in so much awe with. And I think that was the biggest gift for me, to witness all of those women. So I love to see the softer ones, the quieter ones come first and through the Soulogy Fest and just share their piece of the magic, because those are the ones that actually, it's so humbling to see, because they have to work a million times harder than I did, right?
Right.
You know, to get where they're at. Yeah.
No, absolutely. That's what I was referring to. And my theory is, and I'm really glad that you pointed out the magnitude of the energy, really, of Mulberry Mountain, and what we can only kind of, think towards in terms of what it actually is, because we're going to find out. But I do feel like it goes back to what you're talking about, even beyond that. But I really feel like that, if anything, the collective energy that everyone formed, both that were there and that were part of the energy, what actually brought into equilibrium or into manageability or into neutrality the mountain energy, the diverse mountain energy itself, was the frequency that those women represent, or Bob Wilson represents. It is a pure, unconditional love, stepping into its power. We can call it the mother's energy, metaphorically, whatever you're comfortable with. Bob Wilson has it. Ty has it when he's not kicking and cussing, which is very rare. But you know what I mean? It's like a determined, I've had enough. I'm willing to put my life on the line, and I'm willing to have, step up. And I feel like that's what would have brought the mountain. And because we very easily could have had a tornado go right through that section. Seriously.
I tried not to have to.
But it was that level of energy, and the potential of it, and the physicality could have been something like that. I thought about that. And I knew that. But yeah, I just think it was, somebody just said magical. I think it was just absolutely magical. I just want to say my biggest regret is I didn't get to hug you. And because I had like several different hugs.
Hugs left, right, and center by the time I was done.
Well, I had all these different hugs I was going to do, and the ways I was going to do it. And I had a couple little practical jokes I was going to do, and I'm just going to have to save them for a rainy day. But I can't, I can't really go there. I'm surprised I haven't broken down. We're talking about Izzy and some of the other things, but I absolutely, I just want to say publicly, I'm so grateful. I've told you privately, but I mean, I love you so much. I don't even know. I don't consider Soulogy being any person, not me, not Morgan, not us, but I just see like a core triad of Soulogy is me, you, and Morgan. And, our stories together go back to Hawaii and weirdness and what the hell, and people coming and people going, and dragons, and there's some kind of a ancient connection here, and I think it's an accelerator. I think it's like a triangle that turns, like so many of these triads, and I'm just honored to have been a part of this. And I don't know whatever I'm going to do something one day, but I don't know what it is, and I'm going to do something that just you understand, or at least I'm going to do my best so you understand the level of gratitude and love and respect that I have for you.
Well, I already own your organs. I don't understand what else more you can give me.
Well, I thought you were going to let me keep my liver, though.
Yeah, you can have your liver and your lungs, because you're a smoker. You can keep those. It's funny because I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, well, I could have his children, but I'm like, I already have children of my own, and I don't really like children, so that's not to my benefit.
Yeah. I don't have much else. There's not much else I have, really.
Yes. Yeah. No, you know what? Everything happens for a reason. So we don't always understand it. I don't understand why we're friends either. And during the entire time, I kept asking Ty and Serena, I'm like, why are we friends with Todd again? And then Serena's so sweet. She's like a Care Bear. She keeps cheerleading us on, right? And she's like, because we love him. And Ty and I kind of look at each other like, do we? Maybe we need therapy.
Oh, Ty is the male Morgan. I keep saying that. That would
Yeah.
sound just like something she would say. Yeah. And then real quick, Marianne pointed out there was a lot of people that stepped up, and
Yes.
and that is not. I mean, it's overwhelming. So I think having this series, which was your idea, is a great idea. I think I could see us doing 50, maybe even 80 shows. But I think it's going to bring out a lot of, it's going to bring out the personal stories, but I really believe like that happens on the show sometimes, like even with Elsie yesterday, where this coding just comes out in the moment. And I think we're probably going to get more information in regard to what you brought up about the connection to Atlantis and some fuckery going on with the crystals and information and, technology.
Yeah. No, absolutely. There was, we just happened to be Todd, myself, Ty, Serena, and Morgan just happen to be the ones that are on camera all the time, right? We definitely cannot be here without teamwork for sure.
Yeah.
And part of the series is amplifying the voices that are unseen up until this moment, right?
Yeah.
Because now they understand you are enough, so you can share your story. That's the most exciting part of this whole Soulogy Fest. It really is not about Todd being in jail and Huong being there laughing at him in jail. That's not about it at all. When all this series lands, we will all see the perfect brilliancy of the whole narrative. And it's tapping into the voices that have not been amplified yet.
That's right. Yeah. And we'll leave you with this funny note here. Evidently, Ty said the next Soulogy Fest, Todd is not allowed to leave or drive outside of the grounds. I guess they'll have me like in quarantine or something. But speaking of that, I think we're going to be doing something in November, maybe early December in Sedona. And we'll be announcing that soon. And other than that, we're going to go through Well, hey. It's going to be, we're not going to go there yet. It's going to be much more low key, and we'll see because things are subject to change. But right now we're just going to focus on this series and peppering in the normal Soul Speaks 5D shows. But I'm really intent on doing at least 2 or 3 a day. We did 3 yesterday, and we had a cancellation today, or there'd been 2 today. Maybe there'll be 2 today if I can talk Morgan into coming in. But we're just going to get back on this horse and go and see what.
Yes.
See what other people's experiences were there and what coding they're offering. Yeah. So.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
It was so great, and I look forward to hearing everyone's stories. That's going to be amazing.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. See you later.